Imagine if I told you that the scariest thing in your house isn't under the bed or inside the closet, but behind a locked door you've seen your entire life, yet never opened. In my old house, there was one such door, and the day I finally opened it, everything changed, because the voice that came from inside was my own. As if I was screaming, "Help me, help me." That's when I realized some doors are locked for a reason, because what's hidden behind them isn't just darkness, it's your own blood. The house. In late 2021, I moved into the place I'd grown up in. It was an old house, passed down through generations. The wooden floors creaked under my weight. The wallpaper peeled in jagged strips. Every corner smelled faintly of dust and mold. But one thing always drew my attention. A single door at the end of the upstairs hallway. It was black with age, its paint chipped and peeling. A rusted padlock hung on the latch, wrapped in spiderwebs. As a kid, I wasn't allowed anywhere near it. I still remember my father's stern voice whenever I wandered too close. "Stay away from that door. Don't touch it. Ever." Even my grandmother would avoid it. Every time she walked past, she would clutch her prayer beads tight and whisper something under her breath. At the time, I thought it was just a storage room, a junk closet no one wanted to bother with. I was wrong. The first week back was uneventful. I unpacked, settled in, and tried to get comfortable in a house that felt like a stranger. But on the fourth night, everything changed. I woke up at exactly 2:47 a.m. to a sound that made my blood freeze. Knock, knock, knock. It was coming from the locked door. I sat up in bed, heart hammering, ears straining. Silence followed. No footsteps, no voices, just that knock. The next night, it came again. 2:47 a.m. 3 knocks, exactly the same rhythm. On the sixth night, it was louder. The wood shuddered under each hit. Knock, knock, knock. I told myself it was nothing. The house was old, wood expanse, pipes rattle. That's all it was. I almost convinced myself until the voice came. On the seventh night, the knocking came as usual. But this time, a faint, muffled voice followed. "Help me, help me." I froze in bed, breath stuck in my throat. It was a whisper, distant and weak, but I recognized it instantly because the voice sounded exactly like mine. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think. The next night, I decided to record it. I set my phone on the nightstand, aimed the mic at the door, and waited. 2:47 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. My heart leapt. I pressed record, and then silence. The knocking stopped the moment I started recording. Not a single sound, not even the creak of the house. I waited 30 minutes, staring at the red recording light. Nothing. Frustrated, I hit stop, and almost immediately, knock, 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 followed by the whisper, "Please help me." I dropped the phone onto the floor, the screen cracking. It wasn't the house. It wasn't the wind. Someone was inside that room. The next morning, I stumbled into the bathroom. I hadn't slept. My eyes were bloodshot, my skin pale. I leaned over the sink, staring into the mirror. For half a second, my reflection didn't move with me. Its lips twitched, formed words. I read them clearly. "Help me." I blinked hard, stumbling back. The reflection was normal again. Just me. But I knew what I'd seen. That night, I went into the attic and found an old camcorder. I set it up in the hallway, pointing directly at the locked door. I let it run all night. The next morning, I pressed play. At exactly 2:47 a.m., the door handle rattled. The wood shook under 3 sharp knocks. Then, faintly, the voice. "Help me, I'm here." And then, static. Through the static, for less than a second, a figure appeared. Distorted, pale, and it had my face. I snapped the camcorder shut, my hands trembling. I couldn't deny it anymore. Something was behind that door, and it was me. I went to my grandmother that evening. She was sitting in her chair, a blanket over her frail shoulders. When I told her about the knocking, about the voice, about the face, her expression changed. Her skin went pale, her hands trembling. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "There's something you were never told." My heart pounded. "You were not born alone," she said. "You had a brother, a twin." The air in the room seemed to vanish. One night, when you were very small, he disappeared. Right there, near that room. Her eyes watered as she pointed down the hallway. We searched the whole house. We called the police, but he was gone. Just gone. I sat frozen, my chest heavy. The knocking, the voice, the reflection. It wasn't just a haunting. It wasn't just my imagination. It was my brother. That night, the knocking came again, louder than ever. The voice desperate. "Help me, please." I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. And I made a decision. I would open the door. The next day, I grabbed a hammer from the shed. The old padlock dangled from the latch, rusted and brittle. One strike, two strikes. On the third, the lock snapped clean. The sound echoed through the house like thunder. I hesitated, hand on the handle. Then I pushed. The door creaked open, moaning like something alive. The smell hit me instantly. Damp, mold, and something far worse. Something rotten. I raised my flashlight and stepped inside. That IT was empty. For bare walls. No furniture. No boxes. Just peeling paint, dust, and shadows that seemed to move when the light touched them. I almost laughed. This was it. This was the room that haunted me. And then the door slammed shut. I spun around. The door had closed on its own. I grabbed the handle and yanked. It didn't move. I was trapped. My flashlight beam shook as I turned back into the room. And that's when I saw it. A figure in the far corner. Tall, thin, skin pale as chalk, eyes hollow, glowing faintly red. And its face was mine. The figure tilted its head slowly, like a curious animal. Then it smiled. Its voice was a rasp. "Finally, you opened the door." I stumbled back until my spine hit the wood. My throat went dry. The figure stepped closer, bare feet dragging against the dusty floor. "You've been living out there," it hissed, "while I've been trapped in here. Forgotten." It raised a skeletal hand, pointing straight at me. "You took my life." My knees buckled. I didn't know," I whispered. "I didn't even know you existed." The figure's grin widened, jagged teeth glinting in the light. "That's the problem. You didn't know, but now you will." It lunged. I screamed, dropping the flashlight. The beam spun wildly across the floor, throwing twisted shadows along the walls. Cold hands clamped around my wrists, gripping like iron. The voice hissed in my ear. "Now, it's your turn to stay. Your turn to rot." Pain exploded in my head. I felt something pulling at me, ripping, like my very soul was being torn from my body. Flashes of memory flooded my mind. A child screaming behind these walls, clawing at the floor, crying until his voice broke. Silence for years. All that rage, all that pain, all that hunger. It poured into me, drowning me. The last thing I saw was his grin. And then, darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the hallway. The door was shut behind me, the padlock back in place. My grandmother gasped when she saw me. She rushed forward, hugging me tight. You're safe, she cried. My parents came running. They wrapped their arms around me. Relieved, I smiled. Cold, empty, because I wasn't me anymore. The real me was still inside that room, trapped in the dark, screaming, banging my fists against the walls, knocking, knock, 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 begging in my own voice. Help me, please help me. But no one could hear, no one except him. He had taken my place, my life, my name, and I was the shadow behind the locked door. So if you ever hear knocking in your house late at night, especially if it sounds like you, don't open the door, because it might not be someone asking for help. It might be someone waiting to take your place, forever.